Good evening. Welcome to the Mom to Mom show, brought to you by ECRC and Martoma Productions, live on the Chaldean Moms of Metro Detroit page. My name is Lisa Denha. I'm your host for tonight, and our topic is healing after a miscarriage. We have three guests with us today. Welcome, ladies. We have Noreen Lujarai, Rita Zaytuna, and Karen Metzi. All three are here to talk to us about their experience with grieving the loss of a child through a miscarriage. Ladies, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And I want to remind our viewers that you can always ask a question. I am watching this live on the Moms page, so please feel free to ask questions so that our panel can maybe help with an answer. Thank you. Ladies, I wanted to start with if each one of you can just share with our viewers just a brief story about your experience with losing a child through a miscarriage. Lorraine, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, for me, I struggled to get pregnant for a few years. When it finally happened, I lost it at 6 weeks. I was going to the doctors every few days for HCG testing because I was high risk. And they told me that my levels were dropping and to prepare for a miscarriage, and a few days later, I did miscarry.
And you were only 6 weeks pregnant. Was this your first baby?
It was my third.
Your third.
I have two girls, 4 and 8, and then that was my first miscarriage.
And how did you feel afterwards?
Very sad because it took so long to get pregnant, but I trusted in God's plan. I know it was very emotional, but again, I just trusted in what God had planned for me, and my faith got me through everything. So I never questioned why God did what he did. So I think that's kind of what got me through it. And
How long were you trying for?
about 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Oh. Thank you for being here to
Yeah,
share
thank
your
you.
story.
Thank you.
Now, Rita, your story is a little different
Yes.
from Noreen's.
Yes, I miscarried after my second child. I went in for my 12-week appointment, and we didn't find a heartbeat. So that was 3 years ago. And I had another child, a baby girl, after that one. And I got pregnant again last year, December. And I just had my son this past September, 2 months ago today. And I delivered him a stillborn. I went to the hospital, and there was no heartbeat. And as far as my experience, when I compare the two with my first miscarriage, I felt robbed. I had a baby, and then next thing I know, I didn't after I woke up from my D&C. However, with my stillborn, although I did lose him, I felt at peace. It was an honor to carry him for 9 months. It was an honor to hold him for 9 hours. I got to touch him and kiss him. And we say these are God's children. We are God's children. And when I held him, I really took on that meaning, and I said, this is God's child. He let me hold his child, and he took him, and that's okay.
You felt a little bit more closure compared to the first miscarriage. How did you feel? So this wasn't a miscarriage. It was different.
Yeah.
But you did suffer a miscarriage before. With every pregnancy after, what were your thoughts after the first miscarriage?
I didn't really have those fearing thoughts of what if it were to happen again. I just embraced it, and I went with it and prayed the whole time that I would go along and deliver a healthy baby. And I think that's what I did again this time around. And I asked my doctors, am I going to be afraid again to lose another child? And they said, yes, you will. You're going to go through those emotions. But I just need to know that I need to embrace every moment as it comes and not worry about what may happen.
Very nice. And then Karen, your story is a little bit, it's sort of similar to what Rita went through. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
I was about 20 weeks pregnant, and I was just having like an off day, and then after like using the restroom, I called the doctor because something just seemed off. And she said, you know, what's going on is definitely not normal, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. And it was March 21st, and so COVID was full blown. And she said, we can't have you come into the office, but you can go over to the hospital. And I had to go alone. So I went to the hospital, and they did an ultrasound, and they also didn't find a heartbeat. And so I called my husband to come over, and then they induced labor, and I delivered a stillborn at 20 weeks. Wow. And I felt the same as Rita, that it was, I didn't have much of a choice in the matter of delivering. I was so happy that the doctor made that decision because it's what I wanted to do. I wanted, I felt like I was able to do something for him by delivering him and holding him. It was almost like I felt, it's not a sense of closure, but something about it was like Rita, I didn't feel robbed. I felt like I was able to deliver my child. I was able to hold him. We were able to pray over him, and I even, you know, took a picture, and I talked to him, and I was able to kiss him and just say goodbye. And so that to me also I felt like there aren't any words, but yeah.
Did either one of you name both of you had sons?
Yes.
Did you name the baby?
Yes.
Yeah. We both named them Nicholas.
Is there a reason? The Nicholas?
No, just we named him Nicholas. But after I had him, a friend and I had reached out to my prayer group, and I let them know we named him Nicholas. It actually ended up being the Feast of St. Nicholas because I delivered him the next day. And it was Feast of St. Nicholas, and he was the patron saint he was like a small man in stature and all of these things that I was like, wow, this connection. I knew that was the right name for him because obviously my baby was really small. And it was just that confirmation that it was the right name.
How about with you, Rita? Was there a reason behind naming him Nicholas?
It was just my son, Francis Pio is his middle name. And with my first miscarriage, he said, Mom, his name is going to be Nicholas Pio. And then he said, Mom, with this last pregnancy, if it's a boy, we didn't know we were having, I want his name to be Nicholas Pio too. And I said, are you sure? Yes, Nicholas Pio. And I got pregnant right around Christmas. So it went hand in hand with Nicholas. And then I delivered him with Santa, you know, that connection. And then I delivered him 4 days before Padre Pio's feast day. And his middle name is Pio.
Oh, very nice. Well, with some women who lose babies through a miscarriage, they're able to move through the loss freely. And while others feel like deep despair with their loss, what was the grieving process like for you? If we could start with you, Karen. The grieving or healing process.
There was definitely grieving before there was healing. Even during my delivery, though, I had done a novena prior to my delivery. It was a surrender novena. And there's a blurb on just surrendering yourself completely to Jesus. And in the end, you say, Jesus, I surrender myself to take care of everything 10 times. So during my delivery, I was praying that as I was delivering. I was repeatedly praying. And this novena focuses very much on if you actually have faith, you must surrender everything. You can be upset. There can be suffering, but you have to surrender and let the Lord take over. And He did. I asked for the grace for me to have the grace to accept the situation, and He gave it to me, and I did accept it. And so when I went home, I continued on with that prayer, and I said, even though this happened, I want Jesus, please take care of everything. And I surrendered myself to Him, and continuously felt that He was taking care of it. And this prayer says just that if you truly, truly surrender, there will be no greater feeling. And so I did that. So there was the grieving process, though, before the healing process. And even though there was a lot of suffering, that was the first time in my life that I truly understood what it meant to find the joy in suffering. Because from my delivery and to this day, whenever I'm upset, I offer it up. And I thank the Lord for giving me the opportunity to suffer, to offer it up. You almost feel like it doesn't go in vain.
You're suffering, but it's okay. I'm going to offer it up for something else. And if they benefit, please, Lord, hear my prayer. And then that joy also comes from the fact that you know you're doing this, or it's being offered for somebody else.
Right.
But it was also, like I said, the first week of COVID. So I was very alone. We were at home, and so there was definitely a grieving process of a lot of things, of, no staying busy, no. So it was just like a lot of time to think and a lot of time to grieve. And then slowly came the healing with the continued prayer. The Lord let me see, this is what was best for us. And so it was a little different, obviously, because of the times. It would have, I feel like had this happened any other time, the process would have been very, very different.
But it's great how you really embrace your faith to move on.
It was the only thing that kept me moving on. It was the only thing that kept me going. And I'm so grateful that God did give me the grace and that I accepted it, because he gives us grace a lot of times. He'll say, here, let me make this situation better for you, by just giving us that feeling, and we don't accept it. We choose to be upset. We choose to be not, obviously we're going to cry and we're going to grieve, but we choose to let it take over. And I didn't. I said, he is giving me the grace to move forward, to be happy, to watch my children and say, thank you, Jesus, for the 3 that I have here. And I did. I took that and I accepted that grace. And every moment that I felt happy, I didn't make myself sad. I said, thank God I'm happy for this moment. I'm going to enjoy it. And then when I was sad, that was also okay. And I offered it up.
A really great way to look at it. Rita, you too embraced your faith to move forward.
Yeah. What's funny is that I like what you said, that you offered up your labor for 2 people. And what I've done, I did something that I've never done before in delivery. When I went in, I wrote a list of everything I'm offering up my delivery for. I go in, I said I want to have a natural delivery, and I offered it up for Lebanon. When I would look at the woman in the delivery room with shattered glass when there was the explosion, right? For Iraq, for the end of the coronavirus and whatnot. And I've never done that before. And I brought tape, and I told my husband to tape it to the television in our room, so that when I'm in labor, I look at that list and I say, God, my pain is offered up for these things that I have mentioned. And after this happened, I said, what are the odds that I went in with this paper for everything that I wanted to give my labor up, offer up my labor for? And this was the outcome. Yeah. And that gave me peace too, as well.
Rita, going into the hospital, you had no idea. You were just going into labor.
Yeah.
You found out at the hospital.
Yes, so when I was in triage, the nurse was putting the fetal monitors on me. That's what when they are tracking the heart rate. And she said to me, so where do they usually find the heartbeat? And as soon as she said that, I said, this is not good. Yeah, and my husband didn't know what was going on. I was like, it's okay, honey, it's okay. And I just opened my eyes and I said, there's no heartbeat. Just like that. But I knew when she asked that question. You don't ask that question.
Right. Not when you're full term. There's a heartbeat everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, what do you mean here?
Yeah. A mom knows.
Yes, but as far as the healing process, I wanted to be as normal as I could be when I got home. I had no shame in telling people that wanted to come visit me, I don't think this is the right time. I got to pick and choose who I allowed to come to my house, and I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with saying that. I said, let's go out for dinner, or let's go have breakfast, right? Because I wanted to feel normal. I still had 3 kids in my home, right, that were still at home learning school, and normal was not having a bunch of people at my house, right? Maybe if I had a baby. Normal was being outside with my neighbors and talking, and that's exactly what I did. I got home from the hospital. I took a shower. My neighbor came over to blow dry my hair. And all of us ladies, all of us neighbors, I'm blessed to live in a wonderful neighborhood. We all sat down at the bonfire that night. And they just sat with me. And that was it. And that's healing for me, is being normal.
It takes a lot of courage. Yes. And then, Noreen, with you, the situation was a little different. You were 6 weeks pregnant. But how did... It does take you a while to get pregnant.
Yeah.
How was it like for you to move forward? What were the emotions you had?
Nothing like neither one of them felt, but I I was okay with the miscarriage. I think I was okay with God's will. What I wasn't okay with was starting all over again. I think that's what I kind of struggled with, because it's so tiring to try to get pregnant and to try, to get your hopes up and then get your hopes back down again. So that was what I struggled with. Thankfully, it was early enough where I didn't of course I felt a connection, but not a connection where, Rita or Karen felt. But again, I think mine was just like the infertility and kind of having to start all over again and just going through that.
Karen, Noreen, you mentioned through the struggle of trying to get pregnant, you would only use acupuncture?
Yeah, so I used acupuncture.
Acupuncture.
I did it for 2 cycles and I got pregnant, and that's kind of what helped me get pregnant. But I wouldn't do anything else beyond that. We practice NFP, and everything that I do is like through faith-based.
That's very nice. So is there a reason why you stick with acupuncture?
Because it's natural. I don't want to do anything that goes against the church teachings. So if God's will is for me to only have 2 children, then I accept that will. Obviously I want more, and I will do anything natural to have that happen, but I won't go beyond that, because if that's not what God wants for me, then I accept His will for me.
Did it help you with the first 2 pregnancies? For any of the moms that have questions now about infertility?
So with the first one, I didn't have a hard time getting pregnant. It took a few months. The second one took about 1.5 years, and then the third one took about 3 years. So the third one is when I really tried to do, alternative stuff to get pregnant. But with the second one, I didn't. I just continued to try, and I didn't do anything else to help.
Thank you. So we talked a little bit about the loss that you suffered, but how about your husbands? So with the dads, we always tend to worry about the moms, and we forget about the dads, and they're suffering a loss too. What was it like for your husbands? Rita?
Yeah, my husband took it hard. When he was holding, let me rewind to our miscarriage. I almost feel that he just forgot about it, even though he says he didn't, but he never talked about the miscarriage. But with our son, the stillborn, it was more real to him, and he held him, and he still cries today. He thinks of him all the time. It does help him to look at pictures. We have them developed in our kitchen. We go visit him at the cemetery, and we take a family picture with him, so I know that helps him. But he does feel a sense of guilt. He was holding him in the hospital, and he just kept saying, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And he says, "Was it my past sins that this happened?" So he has that sense of guilt, even though he knows that he shouldn't feel guilty, and that is from the evil one, and that's not from God. But he can't help but to feel that way sometimes.
Did you ever feel any guilt? Like a lot of moms that do suffer a miscarriage or a loss tend to blame themselves. Is that anything that
I did for a split second. My doctors assured me with my miscarriage, there's nothing you can do about this. This is just your body's way of saying something's not right. With Nicholas, my last one, in quarantine, it was hard. I'm used to being out of the house. I'm used to going to the gym. Honestly, I would do jumping jacks out in front of my home because that's what makes me feel good. And I was 6 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant, and I would work out with weights and whatnot, but I could handle that. And, I had people tell me, well, maybe that's what you did because he made a knot with his cord, right? And I said, no. So I can't allow myself to think that I did this to him.
Right.
I didn't do anything to him. I loved him.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So now you, I wanted to just touch base on this, but then still go back to the dads. But you made a comment about people made comments to you, like maybe this is something that you did. What advice would you give to anybody if they are actually trying to comfort someone who suffered from a miscarriage, what are things to say, and what are some things that were said that really shouldn't have been said?
I, for example, was at my sister's wedding in July, and I was dancing. My mom's watching the video. She goes, "ما عيد بوهذا هذا خبريلا." I said, "Mom, no." So what's to be said is that, we can hear what people have to say, and that's okay. We're okay to hear those and just brush it off. That's what I do. I brush it off. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Women run marathons pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. When they found that there was no heartbeat, and my husband came and the doctor came, and she, looked and she said, would you guys like an autopsy? I don't see what happened. And we both said no, we didn't want one. But then right when she said, we may never know what happened, and we were okay with that. But then once I delivered, she looked at me, she took the baby before she brought him back, and she said, unfortunately, we do know what happened. And my husband and I both jumped up and were like, what? And she said, the cord was wrapped around his neck 3 times. And initially I started to cry, and then I stopped myself, and she said, it's okay to cry. And for a couple of reasons I stopped. One being that my firstborn had the cord wrapped around her neck 3 times when she was born, and she was born completely purple. And it took a while. Who was my first, we had talked about this, I don't know how I would have dealt with it had it been my first, had it been full, as opposed to now where, this is my 4th. I also have grown so much in my faith in the past 8 years that this was just different. Just that one novena that I started, that I had prayed for the first time about 1.5 years ago. And then another reason was because I felt that sense of peace that I do feel awful for moms. I felt, okay, there wasn't anything I could have done, because right away my husband started to apologize. The same thing, he said, I'm so sorry. And because he felt guilty, he'd been working a lot, I'd been doing a lot. But then you hear this and you say, okay, there was nothing we could have done. We should have known that in the first place, because it still was God's will. Mm-hmm. And it still was, when I get pregnant, I offer my children, they're his children, right? We say, do with them what you will. So if it's taking them at 20 weeks, if it's taking them at 9 months, we have to be open to that. But it was nice to know. We never should feel that way, but I never did let myself feel that guilt because I had an answer. Mm-hmm. But my advice would be to anybody who does feel that is, even if there were something we could have done different, if it would have happened some other way, some other time.
The explanation just being, this is what was meant to be.
This was meant to be. And the sooner we accept it, the sooner we'll find peace.
And then we do have somebody that did comment, don't say everything happens for a reason. Did that bother you, if anybody ever said that?
No, I believe it. One of the things that I thought a lot about was, my vocation as a mother is to pray and get my kids to heaven. It is our vocation. It is our job as a mother to get our children to heaven. Mm-hmm. And when I lost Nicholas, I thought about Saint Rita, who prayed for both of her sons to die before they went and avenged their father's death, and they ended up in hell. And I said, we always, whenever any of my friends and I always say, if somebody is doing something like they shouldn't, and somebody feels a need to judge that parent, we say never say never. We do not know where our kids are going to be one day doing God knows what. We are going to do our best,
we don't
but
even
we don't know
what we're going to do.
Exactly.
Like God gives grace for the moment.
Exactly.
It's up to you to answer.
So what I said with Nicholas, I said, my prayer is for them to end up in heaven. Who knows if this wouldn't have happened, what he would have done as a child or as an adult. He's in heaven. That's one less child. I'm like, yes, I'm suffering.
A positive way to look at it.
My child is in heaven. We got him there. Yes, I'm suffering now, but isn't it better than if he were to have done something later and me to have known his soul wouldn't have made it to heaven?
Mm-hmm. I think also if there was something that could have been done, God would have found a way for you to do it. So I don't think that moms should blame themselves or feel guilty, because if God wanted you to do something or to stop something or whatever it may be, he would have found a way for you to do it or for you not to do it.
It's very true.
We did a lot of things with the 3 babies that we have, and they're all fine.
Yeah.
A lot of things. She's always worked out. I used to work. We've done a lot of things, and those babies are fine.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I was telling Noreen before the show, things happen in my life where God is able to help me. He gets me through these difficult times, but I look at it as him slapping me upside my head going, hey, I'm here. Don't get comfortable in this world. And every so often, he hits me upside my head and tells me that.
Yeah.
In what way he's going to do it, I don't know, but he does it. And I'm like, all right, God, I see you.
Always there to remind us.
Yes, definitely.
this life is temporary.
Yes.
Noreen, we were talking about how dads cope. How was your husband through the process?
I don't think he really felt it the way I did, to be honest, because it was so early on. He was very comforting. I know, he got emotional about it, but he's such a strong and optimistic person that I don't think it affected him in a negative way. I think he just cared about being supportive to me and making sure that I was okay. So I don't know how he felt, but I don't think it was, sad or anything like that.
How did you explain it to your children? Especially in your case, I mean, with mom going into labor, going into the hospital.
Yeah. My husband went home after I delivered, and we said, we did take pictures with him, and we agreed, I don't think it's a good idea to show them the pictures just because he was a little purple and then blue after time and whatnot. But he went home and he told them, and
Rita, excuse me, how old
Yes.
are your children?
7, 5, and almost 2.
Okay.
So the 7 and 5-year-old, they understood. And I hate to say this, but fortunately, because of the first miscarriage where we said, oh, baby went to heaven, we have his footprints, So when my husband told them, my son said, oh, man, again? But we did, they kept asking questions. And I said, Anthony, I think they understand more than we think. And that's when we developed the pictures, and they each have a picture of him in their bedroom. And like I said, when we go to the cemetery, we bring a picnic blanket, and we sit, and they bring drawings for him, and we leave them there. And, over, Halloween, we brought him a pumpkin. So they understand. But that's how we had to introduce it, and we keep talking about him. And my neighbors tell me, by the way, Francis and Pia were talking about Nicholas, and this is what they said. They won't say it in front of me, but they talk about him to their friends.
About with you, Karen?
My kids are 8, almost 7, and 4. And we came home together, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law were with the kids, so they left, and the kids knew I was in the hospital, and they knew I had something to do with the baby, so they thought I had the baby. And even though they understood pregnancy, they don't have that concept of time, the difference between 20 weeks, 40 weeks, so they didn't know. So when you walked in, they were asking about the baby. So we told them, we said, we don't have the baby, Jesus took the baby, and the older 2 started crying, and the other one was just saying, why? And she's 4, but she was the most excited about the baby. So she just was asking why. I started crying. I said, he was born too small. He would not have been okay here. Jesus had to take him and take care of him. And thank God I had prayed about what to say, but I wasn't. I just asked the Holy Spirit to take over, and it did. And they were just crying and crying. And I said, it's okay. It's going to be okay. And we named him, and, we told him the baby's name. And then my son was upset because it was a boy, and he really wanted a brother. And my husband's a little bit different than with Rita. In the beginning, we were grieving a lot together, but he was more just there for me. It was all about just taking care of me. And it was the first time I had ever considered thinking about the husband in these types of situations, as ignorant as that sounds. So when what happened with Rita, I wanted to reach out to her husband because I saw what happened to my husband. And whenever anybody asks me, so how is he doing? And I say, ask him. Because they're like the silent saint. Everybody just forgets about them, pushes them aside. Mom lost her baby. They lost their baby. He lost his son too. He's experiencing the exact same loss as I am. And on top of it, I'm able to grieve. I'm able to be open about it. And he has to be strong. He has to take care of the kids. He had to take care of me. There was no my mom, his mom, families. It was COVID. It was just him and I and the kids, and it was him and the kids and him taking care of me. And so he just in general is a more private, quiet person. So if I want to talk about something or I'm upset, he's very supportive, but he has expressed, his feelings, and he's so upset, but it also for him just helps to just quietly deal with things. So our kids talk about the baby in front of him, but more with me. Actually, over the past week, it's been really difficult for my son. I think they went to school for 3 days since March. And then they were back home, and he's just feeling the loss and like the loneliness. And he's been talking a lot about the baby, and I wish he was here. And so we stopped and we did a prayer yesterday, and it just took some time. But we do. My kids talk about him to me more than, but other people all the time. People are always telling me the same thing. They're like, "Oh, Antonio and Genevieve said such and such about Nicholas, and you're hearing." So we just were honest with them.
Right. It's nice to keep the memory alive, too, within the family.
It is.
How about with you, Noreen?
I just told my girls that the baby was in heaven and no longer here. And they both cried because I told them while I was crying. And they talk about it. They still talk about it, like your baby this or your baby that. But, it wasn't as hard as what these two ladies experienced. So, they were kind of further along and really got more attached to their pregnancy. So I don't think it was as hard as it was for them,
If you were sitting across the table from a woman who has just experienced a miscarriage, how would you comfort her? What type of hope would you give her?
I think something that the doctor said to me that I've repeated is when she kept saying, sorry, and I was saying it's okay. And she said, it's not okay. It's not. And so something I learned was to say was thank you when people said I'm sorry, because it's not okay for us to just say it's okay. It's not. I lost a child. So something that, I would say to a mom is that it's not okay. You suffered. This is awful. It's okay to be sad. And I have reached out to certain people just in different struggles and say, don't forget to offer this up. You're going through this anyway. And so that's what I would say. I would say as much as it hurts, let's offer this up. And I'm here if you need anything. And whatever you feel, it's okay. Whatever.
Karen, in your case, it was COVID, and obviously nobody could come to visit. How was the experience with people reaching out? How was it for you in the beginning? Did you not want to talk to anybody? It's different when somebody comes over to comfort you, but the constant phone calls can take a toll.
So I didn't answer my phone. But I do have an amazing set of friends in my prayer group. Had it was a 2-week train for 14 days. Somebody dropped off a meal to our house, and it was such a blessing because that guilt that I would have felt for not taking care of my family, I didn't have to feel, because there was something ready for them to eat every single day, and there was the kids running to the door to see somebody every day through the glass was so. It's unexplainable what it did for their mood. They knew somebody was coming. And it was that uplifting feeling that they needed, and it was the food aspect, the taking care of my family, that I didn't have to carry that load was what I needed. And a lot of people reached out, and it was all kind of a blur. I don't remember exactly, but I didn't have many phone conversations. I did reach out to the people who I had offered up the delivery for. I also, like Rita, did it naturally. And with my other deliveries, my husband was like, why are you doing this? This time he was very supportive, and he said, do whatever you feel the need to do. And I said, so I did reach out to those people, and I said, I pray that the Lord, hears my prayers, and this is for you. But other than that, except for people who reached out more to like my husband, and there wasn't chatting. I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing that I couldn't see anybody or that nobody could come over. It just was. It was such a scary time. I have friends now who say things like, I can't believe, like now because we know so much more, And the reality is, so many of us have had it that they're like, I can't believe I didn't come, I didn't hug you, I didn't this. And I'm like, I didn't feel hurt by that. You couldn't expect it. It wasn't an option. So it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they didn't come and hug me, or I can't believe they didn't, they couldn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And I'm sure it was difficult for them too.
They expressed
I feel
that.
like they weren't there to.
They did. I didn't think about it because it was not an option. They thought about it, and then I felt bad on their end because you just want to do something for somebody. You want to be able to help, and if you can't even reach out, that's awful. But it's just the time.
I think sometimes having that time to really think, it's almost like a blessing in disguise for you because you were able to really grieve. You were able to feel what you were feeling and not have any interruptions or people distracting you. And almost like even with a death, when people come to visit you after someone has died, you feel okay, and then as soon as they leave, you feel like 10 times worse, So I think in a way, it was almost like a blessing for you guys to feel, what you were feeling and not have any interruptions and just go with, that family time, or you guys all experiencing it together without any interruptions,
For us, it was good.
Yeah.
'Cause like I said, my husband's a private person.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was what I needed, but it was what I needed. But then for Rita, normalcy was key. She needed people to be around. She needed to be in and out. She needed there to be sunshine and for it to be able to go outdoors. And the Lord gave us both what we needed when we didn't even know that's what would have. If it was a different time, maybe I would have needed company too. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this definitely happened the way that it was supposed to have.
How about for you, Rita?
Yeah, so as far as what to tell someone, some people would tell me, I'm so sorry, I don't know what to say. And I love that, actually.
That's my go-to line all the
Yeah,
time.
and I say,
Because there are no words sometimes.
it's okay, we don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
And I did feel guilty after what happened with us. Karen came over, and I said, Karen, what everyone is doing right now, I cannot believe the overwhelming love we are experiencing. We've never experienced this type of love before. And I said, Karen, I'm sorry that I didn't come to you and comfort you the way that you're comforting me. I didn't know any better. So I did feel that sense of guilt that I didn't comfort her the way that she did. She just came and just sat with me, brought treats for the kids,
But we don't know. Yeah. It's like I said, I never would have acknowledged somebody's husband before what happened to me because we're so focused on the women in these situations. So we live and we learn. Like I learned something and then it was what got me through it at the time and I never would have thought about it.
Yeah.
Rita, did you have difficulty talking about it in the beginning?
No, I didn't push it on people either. If they wanted to know, I answered, and I still will. Yeah, I love people think that, I don't want to bring him up to her. No, I want you to ask me. It makes me feel good.
It does.
Because it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay
I
to
think
ask.
that's good, even for the viewers to hear, because sometimes we don't know how to react, and you don't want to offend anybody, but then you don't want to make somebody sad, but then you just don't know how to approach a person. So
I think another piece of advice, just because it came up, would be that if you have experienced something like this, say if it's okay. Is it something you want to talk about? Is it something you want people to ask, or is it you would just like to sit quietly, or you would just like dinner? I think that in our community, so many things are hush-hush, and honestly, everybody's different. I'm going through this, it's okay. Please ask, I want to talk about it, or no, I'm going through this, I need to be left alone. We're allowed to ask for, like Rita said, she picked and chose who got to come over. We're allowed that.
yeah. Yep. You have to for your own sanity sometimes.
Yeah.
How about with you, Noreen? What advice would you have?
Honestly, just being there for someone, talk to them if they want to talk, sit quietly with them if they want to sit quietly, just being there for someone, and seeing what, and you know what, she said people were bringing food over to her family, even small things like that, like you don't have to do something directly for me, but taking something off of my shoulders is a huge generous thing to do. So doing something that a mother has to worry about is something I mean, that's something I would do, for someone going through that.
I just want to remind the viewers that if you have a question, please feel free to ask. We are seeing all the comments, and our panel would be happy to answer any questions that you may have. There's so much to talk about when it comes to this topic. What made you decide to come on the show to talk about your experience? I know we asked,
I think
but what
that's
inspired you to do it?
It was more of just, I felt the calling to hopefully be able to help somebody. Some topics in our community that are hush-hush shouldn't be. And it's okay that if you lose a child to be sad. You don't have to forget about them. You don't have to ever really move on. They're part of our family, and so I was hoping that by coming on, that somebody who was told to not express their feelings or forget about their child, or the memory will fade, your kids are young, they'll forget, you don't have to.
No. I appreciate all three of you really embraced your faith to get through this, and I think that's the message we really want to express to everybody that's watching, how important it is that faith you will always find your way with your faith.
Yeah.
How about with you, Rita?
Yeah.
What inspired you?
Yeah, so same as Karen, but also to not be afraid to speak up if you go through a miscarriage or whatever, or loss, any kind of loss. After my first miscarriage, I got pregnant, and then I told my in-laws, and someone told me, Amrit, it's still early. And I said, this is a gift. I will shout this from the rooftops. And you know what? God willing, I will do that again. When I see that pregnancy test come in and I'm not at the doctor yet, you better believe that if you ask me and I want to tell you, I will tell you. And I will not be afraid of anything.
Announcing it isn't going to change anything. But some women do like to wait, and that's okay too.
That's okay, sure.
As long as you want, it's whatever's comfortable. But
I announced it very early on. I mean, the next day I told all of my family, people that I was close to, because it took us so long, and everyone knew of our struggle. So I wanted to share that happiness with them, So I remember saying that I wasn't going to really go public about my miscarriage. I would tell whoever, because it was so hard. But I ended up posting, it was an Infant Loss Awareness Day. I ended up saying, you know what, I'm just going to post that I lost the baby, that I was pregnant and I lost the baby. And there were so many comments from women that I knew who were like, I'm the 1 in 4. I'm the person, I lost the baby. And I was like, wow. All these women lost babies, and I had no idea.
It's more common.
Yeah, it's so common. 1 in 4 women lose a pregnancy. But it's sad, because that's kind of what inspired me to speak up about it, is that all these women lost babies. I knew all of them, and nobody ever said a thing about it. So why is it such a, I mean, I don't know. It's sad that so many people are afraid to talk about it. I don't know if people feel ashamed or guilty or what it may be, but I think more people need to talk about it. I think that it's more common than we think. So the more we speak about it, I think the more comfort other women who experience will find in it too.
Yes. Did any of you have any feelings of postpartum depression or anxiety afterwards? Because you still did go through a pregnancy and a delivery, and I'm sure there was a little bit of a hormonal imbalance. And did you feel any type of postpartum depression for any of the moms that are watching that maybe are going through the same thing?
I unfortunately wouldn't have noticed, just because of the grieving process. I did experience it with my other 3 deliveries, and I knew that something was off those times. But with this pregnancy, it was covered with the grief. So I didn't think to question it. I was upset. It was justified. I didn't think whether it was hormonal or not. I did check in with my doctor often. Like I said, my husband was home, the kids kept me busy, so I had that support, so I didn't notice.
How about with you, Rita?
Yeah. So with my first, I did go through postpartum depression. And so after I got pregnant afterwards, I said, okay, I know what it feels like, and I know how to counter it. And countering it was doing what made me feel good. And gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. But what really hurt me and got me down more than anything, I think I'm going to open up a can of worms here, okay? Was looking at this child and knowing that, the same woman that would say congratulations on your pregnancy, congratulations on your children, are the same woman that would advocate to kill the unborn. That got me more than anything, especially this time around. And that's something that I cannot let down. That hurts me more than anything, because I can find the joy in what has happened, and I will always find the joy, but I cannot find the joy in women advocating for the murder of children.
I have to agree.
I had to say that.
Yeah. I have to agree.
100%.
You know, we watch movies, and everybody's so excited when there's an ultrasound in a movie. And it was just yesterday I was watching something, and there was so much excitement in this ultrasound, and they were zooming the dad in, and I'm like, okay, this is Hollywood. What's the point? What's the joy? Because you will so easily dispose of this baby.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to judge. I don't want to judge, but at the same time, I just don't see how they don't see what we see.
Well, it becomes something different, because when you deliver babies and they're healthy in their home, you know, to them that's a baby, and to us that's a baby. But when you lose a baby, whether they're 20 weeks, whether they're 6 weeks, whether they're 40, to them that's not a baby. But mine was a baby. I delivered my son. I had a baby. He had a body. He had a soul. He was breathing. So where does the definition change? Because he was wanted?
Yeah.
So now suddenly it becomes personal, because they consider my other children. But this baby was not real. He wasn't a baby. He was a thing. He was a fetus. He was cells. That's not okay.
It's because they can't see. I almost feel like they're blinded by what they're told, and what they're told is normal. And so because we can't physically see the baby, they kind of dehumanize it in a way. But as faithful Catholics, we all know that life begins at conception. There's a heartbeat, and like she said, I can't hear someone say, I'm sorry for your loss, when you advocate for the killing of babies. That's murder.
Yeah, so sorry. That's just what upset me more.
Yeah.
I mean, it made it real for me.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Did you ever express that to anyone?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you know what? And I, like you said, I can't judge them, but I do pray for them, because they may not know any better.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's all I can do. My words are not going to do anything.
No.
My experience may not move them at all. Prayers can.
There was, I had posted for Infant Loss Awareness Month. Chrissy Teigen had posted, because she had lost her baby around the same time, and she had posted something about going home without a baby. And that for me was really hard. When we pulled up, I remember my husband and I were in separate cars, because we went to the hospital in separate cars. And I got home, and it was just, I'm about to walk into the house after delivering a baby, but he's not with me. Because there was that...
I don't think we ever think of that, but you're so right.
Yeah.
we make a big deal when our baby
Yeah.
comes home for the first time.
Yeah.
So that for me was huge. So when she posted that, you know, it was a real connection, but I almost felt like I wasn't sure about it, because they're very pro-choice, her and her husband. And then somebody said, oh, are you sure? You know, after I posted, they said, well, I said, I know that about them, but you know what? It still is what it is. She still lost a child, and I pray that after this experience, maybe they'll see the difference. She lost a baby at 20 weeks. It is a baby, and she feels that maybe something will change. So all we can do is pray.
Yep. In the end, that's all we have to hold on to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you guys coming out to talk to us today.
Thanks for having me.
No, we still have a few minutes. So, we talked about if you guys had joined a support group. Was it easy to be a part of a support group?
Yeah.
Was it?
Karen, I think you invited me to the Healing Saints Ministry. Yeah. I'm kind of iffy on sharing my stuff on a social media platform like that with people that I don't know, but I do have an NFP instructor who is like my second mom. She's out in California, Faiza, I love her. So I called her and I looked to her for advice and I look to her to console me. So she was also my support.
I did the same with her too. She's helped me with NFP, and she was one of the first people that I told, and then I didn't even tell her I miscarried. I was like so heartbroken, and then one day she reached out and I said I lost the baby, and but yeah, I mean, she's amazing.
And Karen, you did join a support group?
I'm part of the Little Saints Ministry, and it is nice to see other moms, to see their stories and to know that we're not alone. And there's a Catholic Moms group also on Facebook, and it's really nice because I love when these moms introduce themselves. They always say, I have 5 children, 3 on earth, 2 in heaven, or however they introduce. It's so beautiful because it's not taboo at all. We acknowledge all of our children. And so things like that, it doesn't even necessarily be a specific support group, just that the feeling that you're not alone in other people. I do have a good support system that because the Lord has given me this group. So it happened during COVID. There's only so much we could do as far as the support group goes, but I am grateful for what there is out there.
We talked a little bit about NFP. So could you share with the viewers a little bit about NFP? What inspired you to go that route?
With me?
Yeah.
Well, I actually didn't really know much about it until I started to struggle to get pregnant, and I started, learning more, and I kind of used it as a way to get pregnant. I've never used it as a way to not get pregnant because I haven't tried not to for as long as I can remember. But I like that it's faith-based. I like that our church teaches us, and Faizat Soroki was one who really helped me learn a lot about it. But you can use it for a way to get pregnant, and then you can also use it for a way to avoid pregnancy. But I don't know how else. I've never used it for any other reason besides to get pregnant.
Interesting. We do have a question, actually, too, that came in. Diana's asking, why do you think Chaldeans feel shame when they go through a miscarriage, especially the fact that it's not anyone's fault?
I think that it's hard for people to find closure if they don't put blame somewhere. And our culture went, everything was, shh, no, nobody needs to know that, nobody needs to talk about that, even good things, oh, don't say that, then they're going to put an Anna on you. Everything is just hush hush. So why, I honestly don't know exactly. It's unfortunate, but I'm hoping that by being here and sharing that, that'll go away little by little.
I think it's the culture for sure. I think, like what you said, even when someone is sick, it's like, don't tell anybody. Or if someone has something like good news, like, don't tell anyone. So I almost feel like it's embedded in our heads, kind of like, all right, we can't say anything because, it's kind of how we were taught. I mean, my own mom does that, so, and it's not her fault, it's just the way that our parents grew up, I think.
Yeah. Did you feel like suffering through this loss helped you get closer with your husband? Did it create a little bit of a divide? Was there a lot more anxiety or tension? Because closer?
Closer. We had a really good relationship before, but something about this brought us closer together, which I was so grateful for, because I know that that's not always the case for a lot of people.
Rita, how about with you?
Yeah.
Same thing?
Yeah. Not only just with my husband, but our family with our kids as well. You know, we now have this special connection to each other, and then that connection between us is another connection to God that we didn't have before.
There's little things like in the morning, whenever we say our prayers, we pray, we pray for Nicholas to intercede for us and these types of things. And we also, it helped us as a family in general too. I was one of the things I was supposed to deliver in August, and shortly after the kids were supposed to be in school. So when everything had happened in March, I was nervous that when they all went back to school, instead of having a new baby, I was going to be all alone. And my kids had been home since March. They went to school for 3 days only. And so this is just something simple, but it's made me appreciate it. I love having them home. I feel bad for them. It's an awful situation, but anytime I get annoyed, I just look around and I say, thank you, Jesus. Even the 3 days that they were in school, my youngest was on a COVID leave from school, not for her, but for the school was closed. Yes. So I've not been alone yet. And, we all have to move forward at some point, but it was a blessing in disguise. Helped me appreciate what I do have.
When you're ready to be alone, I think you'll be more mentally okay with, what you went through. So that's God surrounding you with loved ones for sure,
Yep. So ladies, we do have women that are asking questions, and we're reaching the end of our show. And there are questions here. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough time to be able to talk about it. Or maybe we do. Let's see, we can go through it a little quickly here. Rachel is asking, going forward, what are your thoughts on sharing your future pregnancies? Will you wait until the second trimester? I think we had already answered that.
Probably not.
Rita's not going to, we know that.
I'm not very good at keeping secrets.
I don't know. I think I might.
You might.
I just have to wait and see how I feel. But I probably would be a little more scared because having to tell people that I lost was kind of hard, It
is hard. I've always just thought about the people who I'm going to tell I'm pregnant. They would know I would need them around if I miscarried anyway. So I don't know for me. I don't know until it happens for sure. Right. But I feel like I would be open because if something did happen, I would need them to know.
For sure.
And then Christine is asking, did you guys take a long time to get pregnant after a miscarriage because of hormonal imbalance? And I think we already talked about you haven't gotten pregnant since, except for Rita.
Yeah,
you
I got
did
pregnant,
have
4 months after my DNC. But I was told after this one, when I delivered him, I said to my doctor, when can I do this again? And she said, well, in this case, I would say 6 months to a year. But when I called my instructor, she said, give yourself 2 full cycles. You don't want to go through a miscarriage, so just be good to yourself first, and then try. And I'll pray about it, and I'll know when it's right.
It's always a good way to look at it. Angela is asking, it seems like miscarriages are more common these days. What do your doctors say? Is it really happening more? Are women just more comfortable talking about it now?
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think back home a lot of miscarriages happened, but I think it was due to lack of prenatal care. But I think it's a little bit of both. It is more common, as we've seen even with infertility, even just in our community.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
But we are being more open for sure.
Infertility more than, back in the day, I don't think it was ever an issue.
No, they rolled over and got pregnant.
Yeah. And now we have actually reached the end of our show. So I wanted to thank the viewers for tuning in. Feel free to ask questions as you watch the video. Our panel, I think, is on the Moms page and could hopefully answer some of these questions. And thank you so much for being here just to share your story with us. And I will keep you guys in my prayers, so I hope you keep me in yours.
Definitely.
And just bringing some insight on just healing after a miscarriage. It's a very sensitive issue and or sensitive topic. So sometimes people don't know how to approach a person that's gone through a miscarriage. So I hope that you've helped them, and I hope that somehow you found some healing too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Being here. Thank you for being here.